All right, so in this video, I'm going to talk to you about why you would want to think about doing blogging and having your students blog as part of a regular classroom practice. Okay, so there are three primary benefits to blogging, and I'm going to be talking about each one of these in more depth here. The first one is that blogging gives students the opportunity to increase their interactivity and connectivity, and I'm going to explain what I mean by that in a moment. It has the potential to disrupt traditional student and teacher roles, and in ways that are, I think, for the better, and it makes knowledge and knowledge development public. So these are three really strong benefits that you can see your students getting if you have them start blogging on a regular basis in your classroom. All right, so let's talk a little bit now about interactivity and connectivity. So interactivity, it's got a lot of different definitions to it. It is a form of communication, and interactivity is different from an interaction. So let's start with this term interaction for a moment. An interaction, we can think of that as an action between two or more people or between a person and a medium. So if a student asks you a question, if they say, hey, when is my paper due? And you say it's due on Monday, that's an interaction, okay? When you click on an icon on your computer, you're having an interaction via the medium of the internet. Now, in interactivity, what we have is, how I think about it is as a loop, all right? And so let me show you a picture here. So the way that this starts off is a student asks a question. So we'll use the earlier example. The student says, so when is the paper due? And then the next thing that happens is the instructor provides a response. So as a teacher, you might say, your paper is due on Monday. Now, if you stop right there, that's an interaction. For interactivity, it ends with the student having a final response, which is the student providing something in relation to what you just said. So if the student says, when is my paper due? Okay, right here. And then you provide a response, your paper is due on Monday. Then the student might say something like, thank you, I was confused, that helps a lot. For interactivity to occur, there has to be an additional response from the individual who started the conversation, okay? And it's okay if you don't remember that. We're going to see how this plays out in blogging, because blogging as an instructional tool, it allows for interactions and for interactivity to happen. It happens between learners, between content, between instructors, and then through blogging, we have this very unique potential to become connected, right? We are going to be able to connect students to each other, to other teachers, right? We can cast the net as wide as we feel is appropriate, but we develop connections through regular sustained feedback and discussions that will be taking place on the blogs. All right, so let's move on to the second thing here. This idea that blogging disrupts traditional student-teacher roles. Okay, so there's a pretty standard approach in terms of how students and teachers interact, and it's one of the reasons why I got into using blogging, because I got really tired of the standard approach. So it's a bit stereotypical, but just bear with me. So with the standard approach, the example could be a student writes a paper. All right, hands it in to you. And then as the instructor, you read the paper, you give them feedback, you give them a grade, and then the paper is returned to the student. That's a pretty traditional interaction between a student and a teacher, okay? Once the paper is returned, there could be some additional dialogue, right, where the student might want to talk to you as the instructor about the feedback or about the grade, but really it's unlikely that sustained, engaged dialogue is ever going to occur within and across students, right? Your students within classes are not going to be having some deep, meaningful dialogue about their papers or across classes or within different schools, right? It's pretty much just a conversation. This paper is a conversation between the student and the teacher. And so as a teacher, I got very frustrated with that, because I thought that my students were not seeing the really interesting ideas and rich questions that they had that they really could have benefited from seeing, from sharing with each other. Now, in blogging, this plays out a little different. So in blogging, right, a student is going to write a post, and we'll be talking about what that all looks like and what makes a good post and how you support that in future segments. Many people, right, have the opportunity to see the post, right? As a teacher, you will get to make decisions about how public you want a student's blog to be. But at the very minimum, right, everybody in the class can see the post. So now we've just cast the net wider. It's no longer a conversation between teacher and student. Now it's a conversation between teacher and student and students and students and students, right? So many people can see the post and they can leave comments on it. The author can comment back, right? And so now we have this opportunity where discussion can be started and sustained for as long as we want it to go on for. All right, and then finally, we're going to talk about the third benefit that I had listed, which is making knowledge public. So as students write their blog posts, right, they're generating content, right, and this content becomes public, right, and it could be public for the world or public for just your class, but it has some level of being put out into an open space for people to see and critique and talk about and discuss. And as a result, the knowledge being public, by making it public, it becomes more authentic. So what I mean by that is when students write papers, okay, getting back to the paper example, that only their instructors read, then that product can be understood as something you do just for school, something you do just for a grade, okay? Hopefully they're improving their understanding of it, but at the end of the day, we did it for a grade. When students blog, yes, you are probably also giving them a grade, but they're doing it to communicate a particular message to a real existing community that you all have set up together, which makes the assignment more authentic as it has a chance to impact a broader range of people. It has a chance to shape other people's thinking, and it's more than simply getting a grade. All right, so those are some of the three primary benefits for why you might want to think about incorporating blogging into your classroom. And up next, we will be talking about how you get started with all of this.